Hello ladies and gentlemen, we are back with another episode of Will a Wonderful World. It is the next day. I played this game for 3 hours yesterday, and this game has a significant amount of reading in it, so my voice was just totally trashed last night. I couldn't go any farther. But today's a new day. I got some hot honey lemon into me, so my voice has returned. I don't know for how long, but I'll read as much of this game as I can. I really wish it was voice acted. That would really take the stress off of anyone doing a Let's Play. If I was just playing this game without having to read like everything out loud, it would be a lot easier for me. But it would be probably significantly less entertaining for anyone watching. So I think the sacrifice is worth it here. So yeah, without further ado, let's jump right back into Will a Wonderful World. So that's right, we solved Kang Baek-ya's police thing, and somehow it's got to correlate with Chang Gyong-min's, I guess? I think that's what's going on, so I think we unlocked this one here, which might be an S ending. This is a D now, for whatever reason. This used to be an S. So I guess let's try this again. Who the hell would be calling me at this godforsaken moment? I turned around and answered the phone quietly. It was Lieutenant Kang. Lieutenant briefly asked me about the situation and told me to hand the phone over to the husband. It was the Bung Bung gang. What? Is that true? Oh my. That's wonderful. Thank you. Wow. He hung up the phone, dropped the knife, and hugged his wife, sobbing uncontrollably. Sue, it's all okay now. We can have our lives back. I'm sorry, I'm really sorry. It was all my fault. What just happened? I took my phone back from the man, confused. A strong gust of wind blew past us, and the man lost his balance. I quickly reacted, took a big step forward, and grabbed him, trying to pull him back. But I was pulled over instead. We fell off the ledge together, the world spinning. It was 10 floors off the ground. No one would survive if we hit the ground. I swung my arm out as hard as I could towards the roof ledge. Something flew out of my coat. It was a white ribbon I had wrapped around my forearm with a What? The small spearhead wrapped around the metal bar on the ledge a few times and tightened the ribbon. It was my secret weapon. I called it my tail. For a moment, I let out a sigh of relief, thinking we were safe. But the bar couldn't hold our weight and began to bend. I tightened my left fist and grabbed the man's shirt harder. I burned the last drop of energy inside of me, and with all the adrenaline I had, and forced every single muscle cell in me to release all of their power. Justice was not something that I only talked about. I threw him up towards the roof. We were quickly moving away from each other in opposite directions. The metal bar finally gave out, and it was torn away from the concrete ledge. I began falling with it. I could hear the wind gushing in my ears. This is my justice. Oh no! Did he die? I don't want him to die, even if that makes him happy. Did he survive? It doesn't say anything about him dying. Does it? I don't know if he actually died or not. Maybe.
Dios, ¿qué debería hacer?
Okay, guess we got some more stuff to do. Our doggy friend hasn't chimed in about this one yet. For whatever reason. This looks like it continues forward. Anyway, I hope he doesn't die, because I like his character. That would suck. So who should we do now? We could do Li Wen. or Jimmy? We haven't done Li Wen for a while. Let's do her, I guess. See what's up in her world. The last class of the day was art. I pushed open the door to the classroom and I was shocked by what I saw. What was happening? The room that usually had only a dozen people in it was now almost full. It was like a scene from a beach in the middle of summer. There wouldn't be enough easels for everyone. Just when I was wondering whether I should leave and go study, I saw Jing waving at me from the front row. Why are there so many people here today? I sat down at the seat Jing had saved for me. You really don't know anything, do you? Miss Liu is on her maternity leave, so we have a new substitute today. Someone saw him earlier in the office and posted his picture on the school BBS. He looks so handsome. Oh. That would explain a lot. Alright. I looked around, and only then did I realize that almost all of the newcomers were girls. Why was Rocky here? What was a boy doing here? I took my phone out and tried to log in the BBS. I found myself unknowingly imagining what the new handsome teacher would look like while waiting for the page to load. Well-made pink shirt, rolled up sleeves, top button unbuttoned, pale and flawless skin, impeccable face from the side. The Wi-Fi signal wasn't too good, and I couldn't log in for a long time. Then the front door of the room was slowly pushed open. With everyone staring at him, the new teacher slowly walked across the podium and softly wrote down his name on the blackboard. Wen Zhaoren. I'll be teaching the art class for the seniors starting today. I looked him up and down and noticed that this Mr. Wen was wearing flip-flops to class. His ensemble also included a pair of casual pants with the legs rolled up, a gray t-shirt, and a wrinkled jacket. Not just that, his chin suggested that he hadn't shaved for days. I turned to my side and whispered to Jing, "How is this old man handsome?" Jing ignored me. I looked up and realized that the teacher was staring right at me. Oh no, he must have overheard me. Suddenly, Rocky raised his hand and asked loudly, "Mr. Wen, how old are you? And do you have a girlfriend?" The entire class erupted into a loud murmur. Everyone was staring at the art teacher even more intensely. Well, thank you, Rocky, for getting me out of trouble. Mr. Wen slowly took off his jacket and laid it on the back of the chair next to him. 35. The girls immediately began whispering to each other. His response had certainly intrigued everyone even more. Rocky, however, didn't seem to be satisfied with the answer. Mr. Wen ignored the commotion in the room and took a banana-shaped statue out of the accessory cabinet. People with an easel began to prepare their paper. The ones without one took out their sketching pads. The class was going to be over soon. Near the end of class, Mr. Wen said he would like to pick up an assistant from the class. Anyone who was interested could stand up and nominate him or herself. However, he would need to check his or her sketch. Jing stood up. How brave. Mr. Wen walked over, picked up the sketch. He shook his head and tore it into two halves. Rocky stood up from his seat. I stood up from my seat too, and then the bell rang. Jing was sobbing, and I was completely in shock too. Not only did Mr. Wen tear up her sketch, he even said to her, "Are you serious? Did you seriously just draw something like that? I will not tolerate this kind of thing in my class. We were just some regular high school students. We were not in an art school. Are you serious?" Rocky jumped up in front of the teacher. I tried to stop him, but it was too late. Rocky punched Mr. Wen right in the face. Mr. Wen, however, didn't react despite having been just hit by a student. He simply gave Rocky a glance and walked out of the room without saying a word. Rocky, he was always so self-righteous. The only thing more important in his life might be his ball games. I bet if the bell had rung and the class had been over, he wouldn't have bothered and would have gone off to play basketball. After that, Mr. Wen never came back to the class. Maybe someone filed a complaint about him, or maybe I had always a feeling that he didn't look like he wanted to be a teacher. The next art teacher always dressed impeccably well. He was also incredibly dull. Li Wen. happens then? Mr. Wen tore up my sketch, and he even said to me, "I will not tolerate this thing in my class." Jing was frightened, and she sat back down. I was in complete shock, and my nose started to feel stuffy. Was that really necessary? Haha, you idiot, Rocky loudly jeered. That bastard! I made a face at him. That's only a B. What if he tears up Rocky's thing? Mr. Wen tore up Rocky's sketch and said, "Why don't you bring this to the class next time so everyone can practice with it?" Rocky's face suddenly turned the brightest red I had ever seen. A minute ago, he had been acting like the king of the world. What did he draw exactly? He punched Mr. Wen right in the face. Fuck. Mr. Wen, however, didn't have any reaction despite being hit by a student. Okay. Same ending, basically. Alright, well, let's leave that one for now. I don't necessarily understand what's going on, but I'm not gonna get caught up in it because we got other stuff to worry about here. My mother had always complained that I never exercised. She would always say that if I ever needed to run away from bad guys, I would be dead in just a few steps. There were not that many bad guys in the world. Besides, even if there were, I could just stay in my room and not go outside. It was the information era now. As long as I could get the information online, I could play with the real world in the palm of my hand. Yet, even though I managed to dodge all of the recruiting activities for the school sports meet, my roommate had totally ruined my perfect plan. Today was the all-school sports meet. Ugh. I thought I could have made up an excuse, like a foot injury, so that I wouldn't even have to sit under a tree. I could just stay in my room and play on my computer. Yet Rocky had signed me up for the 4x400 relay race without even knowing about it, and now I had to stand under the scorching sun. 400 meters! This was madness. The last time I had been in a race, I was still in elementary school, and I hadn't even hit puberty. I thought I might die on the track today. The gun went off. I took it from his hand. I never knew that Rocky was so fast. Our team was actually in first place now during his third leg run. Still, why was I the final leg? What were people thinking? There was nothing else I could do but run like my life depended on it. The people along the tracks were cheering for me. I couldn't tell who they were, but this actually felt pretty great. I was only 50 meters away from the finish line, and no one had caught up with me yet. I must have underestimated myself. Look at me, Mom. Your son is now about to win a race. I looked straight ahead to the finish line, and I saw her. I saw my crush. Oh no. Don't distract me at such a moment. Yet it was too late. I had only lost my focus for 1 second, and the tip of my foot tripped over a bump on the track. My entire body left the ground, and then my face smashed into the ground. By the time I got back up, the other teams had all run past the finish line. Oh no. Jimmy. Nice one, Jimmy. Mr. Kwan. Although it had just suffered a fire, Pitt Street 99 was still open for business. It was a small and old building. The walls were covered with flyers and graffiti. I walked through the main gates and saw a narrow staircase. There was also a small desk at the bottom of the stairs facing the entrance. A man with spiky hair was sitting beside the desk with his legs crossed. He put down the magazine, which had a woman with big breasts on the cover, and asked what I was doing there. I told him that a man in a long black trench coat had told me to come here. Trench coat? Everyone here wears a trench coat. I'm telling you, this is not some place that you can just walk in. You better get out of here before I stab you with a knife. Spiky Hair picked up the magazine again. I tried to recall what the guy looked like. White shirt, gray vest, short black hair that was combed to the back. He also had a big guy in black suit with a scarred face by his side. A scarred face? Mr. Tough? Hold on, does the guy you're talking about have his right hand? Spiky Hair put down his magazine and his legs leaned towards me and asked quietly, "Right hand?" I couldn't remember exactly, but I did remember that he had picked up my phone with his left hand. He shouted upstairs, "Mr. One, this guy knows you've been, waiting for us here." I looked at the staircase with anticipation. However, the man who came down was not the man I had met. He was wearing a leather jacket and a pair of sunglasses. He had high cheekbones and he looked much older. He took me all the way to a suburb on the back of a motorcycle. Mr. Kwan spoke very fluent English. He told me that the building we had just been in was the headquarters of the Black Dragon Gang, the biggest gang in Hong Kong, and the person who had told me to come was the second in command of the gang. He instructed Mr. Kwong to induct me as a pledge. A pledge was a potential candidate to join the gang, but before officially admitting me, Mr. Kwong had to make sure if I was qualified. Mr. Kwong put a gun in my hand. I was stunned into speechlessness. "You don't have to do it. If you're not willing to do this, you can leave right now. You just pretend that you never met me." Mr. Kwon took a small metal box out of his pocket and threw a piece of gum in his mouth. "No, I'll do it." I couldn't let go of any chance to find Alicia. Besides, I had a brilliant idea. I went into a convenience store nearby. Most of the goods on the shelves seemed to be used goods. Some of them were covered with a thick layer of dust. The owner looked like he was over 60. He was reading a book behind the counter. It was just the two of us in the store. I walked up to the counter, smashed my left hand down on it, lifted the gun with my right hand, and pointed it at his head. I yelled in my meanest voice, Give me all your money or I'm gonna blow your head open." Then I whispered to the old man about what was going on, making sure that Mr. Kwong wouldn't be able to hear me. I was so nervous, even though I had no intention of robbing him for real. I handed him what was in my hand. "Please." The owner put down his book and looked at me pleadingly. We need the money here for my wife's hospital bill. I can't give it to you. Everything else in this shop, if you like, it's yours, all yours, please, please." Apparently he had only heard my threats, not my whispers. Tears rolled down my face. I must have lost my mind to be robbing a poor old man like this. Even if it was all fake, I should have never done this. I handed the gun to the owner and loudly told him why I was there and what I had been through. To my utter surprise, after hearing my story, the owner offered to help me ask about my sister, and even asked if I would be willing to stay here and help out in the store. He said I was welcome as long as I didn't mind the little wage he could afford. I gave the old man a huge hug. Outside the store, Mr. Kwan had already left. I would never see him again. I started working in the store while looking for information about Alicia. Days went by, but I still hadn't heard anything. Lord, what should I do to find my sister? Should I have joined the gang instead? Carlos. Carlos, you're too nice, man. Alright, guys. In these two letters, there are some special restrictions. Special restrictions? Yes. Remember I told you that the white pieces could be moved anywhere, except past the first and last black pieces in the letter, of course? Yes, I do remember. When special restrictions are in place, that will no longer be the case. If you put "I handed him" and "I caught it from" both on the left side, then the former has to happen after the latter. Because you can't hand the baton over and then hand it back again. Furthermore, if you put "the gun went off" piece on the left side too, it has to happen before the match begins. So there is another sequence restriction on this pieces too. All sequence restrictions are labeled by a number. The pieces with smaller numbers cannot be placed after the pieces with larger numbers. Since the aforementioned restrictions only apply to the left side, there is a vertical line in the middle of the red diamond, and the number is marked on the left side of the line. Oh boy, I'm completely lost. Haha, that's not all. In addition to sequence, there are other special restrictions such as conflict. We'll deal with that when we see it. For now, you just need to remember that all of the pieces with special restrictions will be labeled with a red sign like this on the right side. Okay then, I'll try my best to remember them. Let's try this and see what ending we get here. It's probably not the right one, but these things are kind of temperamental. I hid the only valuable thing I owned in my left palm when I smashed my hand down on the counter, my cell phone. The owner looked outside the window and seemed to understand what was going on. He accepted the cell phone quietly and took the few large bills in his drawer out, which was worth much more than my phone, and handed them to me. Thank you so much, Mr. Owner. I left the store and handed the plastic bag with money to Juan. How dare you play a trick on me? You think the Black Dragon Gang is a joke? He punched me in the head and knocked me to the ground. Then he gave me several heavy kicks to the stomach. The passers-by all around us hurried away, afraid of being caught in the middle. Fuck. So we were found out. So what happens here then? I finally handed the baton off to the next leg. If I had to take one more step, I was going to throw up blood and die right there and then. Our team was in second place. It was all up to Rocky now. Rocky soon finished the 200 meters, but something didn't seem right. Had he eaten something bad today? In the end, not only did Rocky fail to pass Class 2, he was eventually passed by Class 4, 10 meters away from the finish line. Ah, that sucked. Although being part of this actually felt pretty great. What if we shoot the owner? Will we murder Carlos? A dark red hole appeared on the forehead of the owner. Apparently he had only heard my threats, but not my whispers. No matter how hard I tried to signal him, the old man could not get my hints. Just when I was about to give up, the gun went off by accident. There was blood everywhere. I ran out of the store and completely forgot about Mr. Kwan and began running back the way we had come from. Mr. Kwong never tried to catch me. A few people on the street gave me some strange looks. They must have thought that I was a madman. I wasn't mad. I was guilty. I was guilty of killing someone. I had to confess. I must confess. Before sunset, I was already sitting in the police station. There's blisters on both of my feet. Lord, I have to confess. Please forgive me. Okay. Well, I made you kill someone, so don't feel too bad. Well, if the gun goes off first and you have to hand him something, then he's obviously not dead, right? We just move all those to the one side. I handed off the baton to the next leg. If I had to take more than one step, I was going to throw up blood and die right then and there. Our team was in second place. It was all up to Rocky now. Rocky soon finished the 200 meters. Okay, but he fucks up. Now that I participated, I wanted to win this too, but I couldn't help start with cheering Rocky on. Many other people were cheering for him too. I never knew that participating in this kind of event could actually feel pretty great. Rocky suddenly sped up. He finally ran past Class 2 with 10 meters left and he crossed the finish line first. Well done. We were happily hugging and shoving each other near the finish line. My stomach hurt a little. Can we do a barbecue instead of ice cream? You're funny. I pushed Rocky aside and accidentally caught a glimpse of someone. It was my crush, and she was looking at us, and she was smiling. Wow, I never knew I could get this kind of reward by participating in the meet. I felt so happy, so happy. Well, shit, that's good for our buddy here, but nothing happens. I guess, is this the compromise that we need here? The owner was so frightened that he started shaking. He immediately took a few large bills in the drawer out and handed them to me. Apparently, he had only heard my threats, not my whispers. Watching a 6-year-old man with an ailing wife at home crying and begging me to spare his life, I could barely hold the tears in myself. Mr. Kwan took the money from my hand with a satisfied look on his face. I was then admitted into the Black Dragon gang. A few days later, in the evening, I took a motorcycle from someone else in the group and came back to the store. I stuffed all the money I had borrowed for the past few days under the rolling door of the store. Sorry and thank you, Mr. Owner. There, we got it. Alright. Good one, everybody. Wrap that one up nice. Alright, I'm gonna go puzzle over this Li Wen one again. And bash my head in on the table until I get it. Whatever combination it needs. Okay. Rocky stands up after the bell rings. Jing was sobbing. I was completely in shock too. Not only did Mr. Wen tear up her sketch, he even said to her, "Are you serious? Did you seriously just draw something like that? I will not tolerate this kind of thing in my class." I couldn't control my anger. "You need to apologize." Mr. Wen gave me a glance and picked up my sketch. Boring. Rocky picked up his basketball from under the seat and casually walked out of the classroom and disappeared into the after-class crowd that was filling the hallway. Other students were leaving as well. There were fewer and fewer people left in the room. I collected my stuff into my backpack, getting ready to leave. "You, stay and clean up the room." "What?" I stopped what I was doing and looked at Mr. Wen in disbelief. He handed my sketch back to me. "After all, you're my assistant for this course now." He turned away and walked back to the front of the classroom, and I just realized that everyone who was still in the room was staring at me. Everyone looked like they were gawking at a circus monkey on the street. What the hell? I had no intention of being a freaking assistant to that guy. Jing put her arm around my shoulder. "Congratulations! Let me buy you dinner sometime, you poor kid, haha." I burst out laughing. "Well, whatever, haha." Okay, we got it. Ding-a-ling. Nothing like fucking up people's lives. Okay. How long has it been? Should we go for another? One more? I don't know. Hoping our Chang isn't dead. Chang might be dead. I really don't think he is, though. Holy crap. This is a new person? Yay.
¿Por qué me pasan este tipo de cosas?
Carlos. Who else? Li Wen again. And Jimmy. Nice. Who should we do this episode? Let's do the new person, maybe. See who they are. But we'll have to do Carlos, too. Fuck. This sounds ominous. This might be a dark one to finish off on, honestly. Maybe we should go with Jimmy and Li Wen. I don't like how she's talking about a piece of rope like that. Might have something to do with suicide. Try not to leave off on a low note like that, but shit happens. Alright. I'm Li Wen, a senior at Yingmen High School. Haven't we read this? Today the new art teacher assigned me as his assistant for the class, so I had to stay after class and clean up the art classroom. I tried to sneak a few peeks at excuse me. I tried to sneak a few peeks at the strange teacher while I was reluctantly mopping the floor. He was looking over sketches that had been left in the room, one by one, and then throwing them in the trash. There was only the two of us in the room. Neither of us was talking. "Hey, W, how was your first day?" It was my homeroom teacher, Mrs. Yang, who burst into the room and broke the silence. She said hello to me and held on to Mr. Wen's arm like a little girl. According to what I had heard from Jing, Mr. Wen and Mrs. Yang went way back. There was also Mrs. Yang, who had recommended for Mr. Wen the vacant teaching position. The beautiful Mrs. Yang, or Ms., I guess, was said to be notoriously hard to get. Many male teachers in the school had allegedly been turned down by her. Was she involved with Mr. Wen? I grabbed the trash can and deliberately left the room. When I got back, there was no one there anymore. Someone appeared to have already replaced the barrel for the water dispenser too. It seemed that I could finally go home. Yay! It was starting to get dark, and when I finally reached cleaning the classroom, I walked out of the school gate and noticed that Mr. Wen was walking not too far in front of me, going in the same direction. That was strange. I thought he had left a while ago. I didn't want to go talk to him, so I stayed behind him at a distance, quietly watching his back. Such a bad-tempered and terribly dressed man. How exactly did he become a teacher again? Before I knew it, Mr. Wen had walked into the dark alleyway that led to my place. However, as soon as I stepped into the alley myself, I suddenly felt something wrong, and I immediately looked back out of the alley. Mr. Wen had been stopped by two men, one in front and the other behind him. The one facing my direction was wearing a tank top. He flashed a pocket knife in Mr. Wen's face. I hid behind the corner and tried to peek around it. Mr. Wen took out his wallet and handed it over without any resistance. That was smart, I thought. Better safe than sorry. The tank top guy fiddled with the wallet for a while, then slammed it on the ground. 20? Do you think I'm a fucking beggar? He punched Mr. Wen in the face. Mr. Wen stumbled back and bumped into the guy behind him. He was not resisting. The tank top guy placed his knife on Mr. Wen's face. Be smart, give me all your money. Judging from the look on his face, maybe that 21 was really all Mr. Wen had. We were too far from the main street, and no one else was around who could help. I suddenly had an idea. I took the racket out of my bag and grabbed a tennis ball. This was the time to test the results of all my nightly practices. Ball toss. Backswing. Please hit the target, please. The ball was flying at a speed of 180 kilometers per hour. A gust of wind suddenly swept by. The ball was blown off the path by the wind, and it missed the target. Instead, it hit the back of Mr. Wen's head. Mr. Wen fell to the ground with a thud like a brick. The two men noticed me, and they seemed to be just as shocked as me. They must have thought I wanted to kill the man lying on the ground for some reason. The tank top guy took one step towards me. I began to picture how they would force me into a corner, pull a chainsaw out from behind them, and cut me to pieces. Oh no, I couldn't stay there any longer. I'm sorry, Mr. Wen. I screamed silently in my head and ran away with my hands covering my face, leaving Mr. Wen there by himself. The next day, Mr. Wen did not come to class. The school put an announcement saying that he had been badly injured during a robbery and that he was in a coma at the hospital. The announcement also reminded the students to be careful on our way back home. It was all my fault. I should not have left him alone. There must be a better way. Li Wen. Li Wen is good at killing people. Honestly, and putting them in comas. She attacked the janitor guy, Mr. Sun, and knocked him down the stairs, and now she hit Li Wen in the back of the head. Or not Li Wen, Mr. whatever his name is. She's bad. Bad. Alright, Jimmy. My name is Jimmy. I'm a transfer student. I just arrived in Beijing not too long ago, and now I'm a senior at Yangnan High School. The reason I chose this school was because, well, I had a serious crush on a girl here. Just a few days ago, I was fortunate enough to be her partner in a doubles tennis match on my first day at school. I was so glad at first that I thought the goddess had finally smiled upon me, yet I was totally embarrassed because I had never played tennis before. Since then, I had made up my mind. I was determined to improve my tennis skills just in case I had another chance like this. I adjusted the serve speed of the tennis ball machine, walked back to the baseline, raised my racket, and got ready. In order to get better, I had bought a season membership at this club. I even finished watching all 178 episodes of the Kid Tennis anime. I had complete faith in myself, and I believed I could make it work this time. The next time I got to play with her, I would show off my kick serve, my pull-up volleys, and my drive D, and even my zero-style slices to her. Oh my god. She would look at me with admiration. Ahaha. The ball machine shot out the ball with a pong. The ball was flying at 140 kilometers per hour. Ah! What a sneaky machine. How dare it serve the ball when I wasn't paying attention. Oh gosh, my wrist really hurts. The doctor said that I had hurt my tendon and I needed to rest my right hand for at least a month. He said I should not even use a mouse, not to mention playing tennis. No! Doctor, I want to play. Dear Goddess of Fortune, if you can hear me, please heal my wrist. If it's necessary, I'll even swear off video games for a month as a sacrifice to you. Please, Jimmy. Well, Jimmy, I don't think that'll be necessary, but I don't think I'm a goddess, so... Oh great, Will's got more to say to us. In this letter, there is the conflict special restriction that we talked about before. For instance, in these two letters, the two pieces 140 kilometers per hour and 180 kilometers per hour are in conflict with each other. That means they cannot be moved to the same side. If you try to do so, they will automatically switch places with each other. Both pieces are labeled with a double-headed arrow, which stands for conflict. Okay. This one is much easier to understand, isn't it? Haha, don't worry, you'll get used to all these red signs eventually. Okay then, I'll try my best to remember them. That's probably the fix right there, honestly. Because the gust of wind will knock the ball out of the way, hopefully. And without the gust of wind, her shot will probably be accurate. That's what I'm betting on. Let's see what happens. I shuddered a little. Before I realized that the ball was already right in front of me. I was so startled that I had to awkwardly block the ball with a racket. I accidentally hit the sweet spot and it felt really great. Wait, had I just hit it? Yes, I had. I had hit it with an underspin shot. A technique in tennis where the ball is hit slicing downward at the contact point, forcing it to have a backspinning rotation. It usually falls slower than a flat shot or a topspin shot. The advantage is that the ball will bounce in a backwards direction once it hits the court, which could cause the opponent to whiff if not properly timed. However, a backspin is usually too slow, so if the trajectory goes too high, it could also easily get out or get volleyed. An ideal backspin should have very low clearance of the net to stay low and flat. Experienced players will often sneak in a backspin after a series of topspin or flat shots to disrupt the opponent's rhythm. Oh wow, I knew how to hit an underspin now. Banzai, banzai. I jumped up and down with excitement. People nearby were shooting me admiring looks. What does banzai mean? Was he hurt? No, banzai is the Japanese phrase. It means hooray. Although, based on my observations, lots of people outside Japan use the word as well. They are from many different countries, and most of them are men. Oh, and they share another common characteristic. What is that? They're all single. Oh, single. What's wrong with being single? Everything. Being single hurts. Ha! In the end, banzai still means hurt, right? See, banzai means being single, and being single means being hurt. This is very straightforward. I think I'm single too. Banzai. Aw, poor Will. The ball hit the forehead of the tank top guy exactly as I wanted. He fell to the ground with a thud like a brick. Before the second man realized what had happened, I sprinted towards his back as fast as I could. I smashed his head with my racket with all my strength. Then I grabbed Mr. Wen's hand and ran out towards the end of the alley. 10 minutes later, I was panting heavily and realized I had already run all the way back to my apartment building. Oh, I was still holding Mr. Wen's hand. Mr. Wen, excuse me. This is where I live. I quickly let go of his hand. Well, I might as well do a home visit then, shall we? Home visit? For a senior? By an art teacher? Mr. Wen, actually, there is no one else home. I walked in front of him and explained, Do your parents always work late? Mr. Wen looked up at me while climbing the stairs. The sunlight coming through the windows in the hallway was making him squint. No, I live alone. I stopped in front of room 413, but Mr. Wen didn't follow me. He stopped in front of room 413 and pointed to the door across to him with his thumb and smiled. I suddenly remembered. The first day after I'd moved in, the manager, Uncle Sun, had told me that a very famous artist from abroad had been living in the apartment next door. So that was him. we had actually met each other before. Okay, so it's confirmed. I had always had suspicions that Li Wen broke into his house back here. So she was the one who got exploded and died back in this story arc, I guess. I think it's her anyway. It must have been. Unless someone else is going to be introduced here. Anyway, that's all the time I have for this episode. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed. If you did, don't be afraid to hit that like button, subscribe if you're new, and I'll catch you in the next video. Thanks for watching, and have a good day.